Welcome. This is the February 28, 25 Metro Arts Commission Grants and Funding Committee meeting. I am going to call this meeting to order. And Vivian, would you be able to do the roll call? Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Lefkowitz.
Here.
Commissioner Jester.
Here.
Commissioner Knight.
Here.
Commissioner Wade. Here. Commissioner Khalil.
Here.
And Interim Executive Director Ashley Batchelder.
Here.
And then I am here, Vivian Fox. And that is all.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Welcome everyone to this meeting. I want to read this statement first. Pursuant to the provisions of 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Arts Commission may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the Commission. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. Thank you for helping me with certiorari. I'm going to write that down again. Welcome. I want to get right to it and ask Vivian, do we have any public comment today, either in person or otherwise?
We do not have any in-person public comment, and we do not have any emailed as of right now. I will double check that once the meeting is over. If there was emails, then I will send those public comments to the committee.
So we do encourage public comment, and just a reminder that you can submit online. There is a public comment form, and we do enjoy and welcome hearing from the public. It's helped guide our decisions so much. I want to move now to agenda item C, which is the approval of the minutes from our last time together, which was February 13th. You've received those minutes in your packet, and I would ask that you review those and for any changes or edits, and if there are none, I would take a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Great. Thank you so much. The minutes from February 13th are approved. We move now to the crux of our meeting, action decision items. We're happy today to be talking about FY25 grants. And I want to begin with a staff report, and then we'll move into kind of a discussion of conflicts of interest and the details of funding. Ashley?
Great. Thank you so much. So for the staff report, what I decided to do is just to update let me make sure I'm speaking mic, was to update the timeline that you all authorized in January and that I provided an update at our meeting a couple of weeks ago. And so if this looks familiar, it's because it is familiar. And I think we're going to show it on the screen as well. If anybody, if you want to pull it up as the separate document, it's not on a slide. For anybody who might be watching remotely, and we'll also have this posted to the meeting page as well. And so the way that you can look at this document, I'm not going to go through things that we've talked about at previous meetings, but if you flip to, I think it's the third page, you see where the red text comes in. And so those are the new additions that have happened since we met last time and right now. So just to tell you how we got here, since our last meeting, we have done the technical reviews for the panelists. As a reminder or information for those who are new, we have community members apply to be panelists, and those are the folks who review all the applications, both for Thrive and for operating. It's an application process for the panelists with criteria that you approved, of course, in January. And staff do the review of those applications. I'm speaking about the wrong part. I am speaking about technical reviews of the grant applications. So that's the first step before assigning grant applications to the panelists. So tech reviews of applications are done by staff. We had 4 staff members help out with that. That's just assessing, did the applications meet the criteria? Did they submit the proper documentation showing their nonprofit status, if they're an organization? Did they submit their fiscal sponsor, fiscal agent information, if they are so using a fiscal agent as a Thrive awardee, and just making sure those baseline criteria are submitted and accurate. And then we had our review panels. And so the way that we prepared our panelists, we had an orientation and a training session that we did virtually. We had 18 panelists total. 17 of them were able to attend the live training that we did virtually. I always consider it a success when 17 people can get schedules to align. And so we had a good and productive training session with them. And then they had about 4 or 5 days to review the applications. And so I said this to them, and I'll say it again if anybody's watching, like really, really grateful that community members were able to prioritize that work, the fast turnaround time that they had to work on it, and we couldn't have got to where we are without those 18 community members. And so we had the panels on February the 25th and February the 26th. That was Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. And so what happens on a panel day is that everybody has scored their applications independently through their own review, and then they come together, and we have a very structured process in which they discuss every application and have an opportunity to change their scores if they so choose to, based on the discussion, if you know, they thought about something differently. And so we did the Thrive panel on Tuesday. One panel reviewed 39 applications. The second panel reviewed 38 applications. And then we had the operating panel on Wednesday, and they reviewed 45 applications. And several staff members helped facilitate and support those panels in various roles. So that brings us to today. We have, this says 76 Thrive projects recommended for funding, but it's actually going to be 75, and I will speak to that once we get to that point in the agenda. And we have 94 operating grants recommended for funding based on the results of those review panels and the funding formulas that make up our guidelines. So that is what's happened in the last 2 weeks. And then just to sort of project what happens next phase. Of course, Monday, we will bring this to the full commission based on actions that you take today. We hope to notify awardees within 48 hours of the commission's decision on Monday. And then we'll move into the contracting and disbursement process. So that is where we are in the process. Any questions or comments about that so far?
On the final page of the timeline, it says operating panel 45 applications, but then 94 operating grants. What's that discrepancy?
Yeah, good question. So when organizations applied last year, they had an option to use my score from the previous year or to request a new panel. So that difference there are the applicants who had requested to use their score from last year.
Great, thank you. You did say that previously, but I had forgotten.
Any other questions? I will say I appreciate a timeline and, as I've said before, a good table. And I think this is a I would take any suggestions from the committee, but I love this model as kind of an update model and transparency, so everybody kind of in the community too can know where we are. So thank you for attending to that, and I echo what you said about thanking community members who. It's hard to imagine that all of that would work in the timeline that we had. And so I'm very grateful to the community members who served as panelists and for all of the staff and leadership who helped make this happen. If there's no other questions right now, we'll move right into the next piece, which involves conflicts of interest. So we want to be sure that commissioners, when we're voting on things, that we disclose these actual potential or perceived conflicts of interest that might exist and disclose those. I know there are some questions potentially about the conflict of interest in terms of what constitutes one. I have those, and so we wanted to go ahead and talk about this, and so that yes. So Tessa, is it something, could you speak to just the conflict of interest and anything that commissioners should consider as they complete this form?
Yeah, absolutely. Vivian, do you have, I sent Ashley 3 slides. Can you pull up those slides for me? So conflicts of interest are based on generally the Metro Code 2.222.020. And so there are some specific parts that say conflict of interest, but we take this kind of in a totality of the circumstances type of situation. And so I pulled these slides directly from the ethics training we give to boards and commissions. And so these are only a portion of it. The rest of the slideshow doesn't really apply to the situation. But you have to understand that as a board and commissioner, when you're voting on matters for the metropolitan government, such as this, that you have a duty of independence. And so there are some bullet points here. You cannot act based on self-interest, based on bias in favor of people you know personally. And so on that second bullet point, people you know personally is generally family members, familial connections, close personal relationships. And then if you go down to the third bullet point where it says based on the interests of directors or contractors with whom your board interacts with, this one for the Arts Commission is a little bit different because you may sit on a board or commission of another arts-based organization or an organization that has requested funding from the Metro Arts Commission. And so that's what this bullet point applies to. So if you sit on a board or commission of an arts-based organization or an organization requesting funding from the Arts Commission, you would be conflicted out of that. Going back to bullet point number 2, bias in favor of people you know personally, this really goes back to you have to be truthful with yourself about your personal connections with people. If you know that you have had a close personal relationship with a director of an arts organization, if you have done work for that organization that's requesting funding, if you have, Heather, I'm going to use you as an example. You recently participated in Vagina Monologues for a local organization. If that organization, because you've had a recent close personal connection with them, you've performed in one of the productions recently, if that organization is requesting funding, you likely have personal bias. Even if you believe that you do not have a personal bias, there could be an appearance of a personal bias. So not only are you asking, what is my own true personal bias, but where are those situations where there could be an appearance from the public of a personal bias? Can you go to the next slide, Vivian? So I've talked about a lot of this, when you should recuse yourself, bias on personal interest, specifically where you could gain or lose monetarily directly from the decision based on prejudice, either for or against a party or a group, close friends, business partners, or an organization that you cannot be objective about. And if ultimately you just know that you cannot be impartial and to the facts, then you should recuse yourself. Can you go to the next slide? So again, the big thing, and maybe that's not directly financial gain to you because you're not an applicant, but if, let's say, your spouse or your sibling or your best friend sits on a board or commission that's asking for funding, then that could be viewed as a financial gain or loss. Participation will create an appearance of impropriety. That's again where I used Commissioner Lefkowitz's recent performance in the monologue with that organization. And so that's the general basics. I am more than willing to answer specific questions from the commissioners from this committee. But really it's financial gain or loss, family members' financial gain or loss, close friends' financial gain or loss, and then the appearance of impropriety.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So on the form, we're disclosing these relationships and conflicts of interest. And is number one is the idea that we should err on the side of caution, like over-report rather than under. And then the second piece is what's the relationship between this form and then the action we might take and whether or not we would recuse ourselves?
Yeah, so if you've identified a potential conflict of interest on the form, that form is a public record, right? It's now a record of the Arts Commission, and that's a public record. And so if you've identified a conflict on that form, and that grantee or organization is up for funding, the safe bet is recusing yourself from that vote. If you feel like you could be impartial, you still should verbally disclose that conflict and articulate the reasons why you believe you could be impartial in that vote. Ultimately, a person cannot be mandated from recusing themselves, but there should be a discussion on that issue. And I do want to say let's just talk about the elephant in the room. After the vote in July and August of a year and a half ago now, there were ethics complaints that came out of that vote that commissioners should have recused themselves because of conflicts of interest, and they did not. Your interim director and I have had robust discussions about that. This new conflicts of interest form was produced, and I think it's very important that we just have those discussions. There is no point in hiding an elephant in the room. And really, we have, I think it's how many grantees, Director Batchelder?
170-ish.
Okay. And because of the large size and the connection that we know our commissioners have, we've developed a plan where any organization that a commissioner may have a conflict with, we will remove those organizations from the general vote of that category or the general vote of that grant type. And those will be voted on separately. So it is very clear to the public that if we vote on a group as a whole, so a large size organization as a whole, it has been identified that there are no conflicts within that group vote.
That's great. So we would not be recusing ourselves, for example, if we had, to take my example, I would be recusing myself from the vote on that organization's funding in particular, but not on operating grants as a whole.
Correct.
It's like removing it from the consent agenda, kind of like in Metro.
Exactly.
Oh, see, I've been watching those meetings.
I have a question. Membership. So, if you're a member of or you've joined an organization to support them financially.
I would say that would likely be grounds for a conflict of interest. If you've joined a group and you're supporting them financially and they're requesting financial funding from the Metro Arts Commission, your finances and the Metro Arts Commission's finances essentially are benefited from one another, if that makes sense.
Is there any set or appropriate time frame? So for example, if I've acted with one of these companies 10 years ago, is that far enough distance, or how would that you recommend?
That's where you have to consider your personal relationships with that organization. If it was 10 years ago and you don't have a close personal relationship with the director, the executive director, those board members, and you do believe that you can be fair and impartial in that decision, that's where that would come in.
Thank you. But it might be worth acknowledging, although not necessarily in the conflict form.
Correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Wade? All right. Okay.
So some of you might have submitted something to Vivian earlier in the week, but I'm just going to give it a couple minutes. And you did not get this list of grantees until I think it was 7 p.m. last night that I sent it to you. We were still processing everything until then. So if looking at the list, of course, helps identify conflicts. So just going to give it a, thumbs up if you're good, but we have plenty of time as well. And so you have a blank form. So even if you did submit something to Vivian, you can do an updated one and we'll take today's.
Yeah, if you need to do an updated one after looking at the list. Okay,
Yes, I need an updated one.
that's right. I didn't want to put one over there. Sorry.
And I think give them to me afterwards so that as I read through the grantees, I'll know that I'm pulling something out if somebody needs to abstain from it.
I do have a question now. Do I need 2 sheets? Because there are 9. I'm happy to write them in, but if you want me to do it 2 separate sheets, let me know how you want to do that. One, just write it in, perfect. And then second question, well, actually the question that Sean asked suffices. Thank you.
Chair Lefkowitz, if I can make one more bit of commentary.
Please.
So there's been questions on quorum, and I'll address this again at the full commission. So we have quorum right now in the committee, right? All assigned members are here, present, and ready to vote. If a member has to recuse themselves from a vote, the vote carries with the total number of voting members. So let's say I'm going to use, there's no bias in this. I'm just taking TPAC because it's the first organization on large, which is what's in front of my face. Let's say we're going to vote on the large organization and a conflict is identified with TPAC. And so we're going to pull that out separately. We're going to pull that out and we're going to vote on it separately, separate and apart from the large organizations. Let's say 2 out of the voting members have a conflict. So that leaves us 3 voting members. For that organization to pass on the vote, we only have 3 voting members, so it requires a 2-member yes for that vote to pass. Does that make sense? Okay.
Could I clarify? Are we looking at operating and Thrive?
Yeah, so I believe Executive Director Batchelder will take it by operating grant category size, large, mid, medium, small, and micro, and then we'll take it by Thrive. And Thrive will be, obviously, it's a separate grant and it's a separate category, and we will pull individual Thrive grantees out as conflicts arise.
I just need a couple of minutes on the Thrive. Maybe we could play some music.
Does anybody need an extra conflict of interest form? Okay.
So let's talk through the fiscal agency model for non 501c3 Thrive grantees. Obviously, we have the grantee, which is the ultimate awardee of the grant, and then we have our fiscal agent, which is our 501c3, legally permissible to receive a grant from Metro Arts. Ultimately, the fiscal agent can and will benefit from the grant. I don't have it in front of me exactly. You know, some fiscal agents have 0%, some have 10%, right? Somewhere in that range. There could be a financial benefit, gain or loss by that fiscal agent. So if you have a conflict with the fiscal agent and not from the grantee, you should recuse yourself because that fiscal agent can financially benefit from the decision of this committee and the commission. Thank you, Commissioner Jester, for that clarification.
If the fiscal agent is also a recipient, and I have declared myself having a conflict of interest with the recipient, do I need to then go through and do that with every individual recipient for the
Correct.
fiscal agent?
Yes.
Okay. Then I need that form back.
So I'm big on examples, I believe.
Well, I am an usher at Tennessee Performing Arts Center.
There we go.
So I have recused myself from that,
Yep.
but now I need to go back through with every place where they're serving as fiscal agent.
Thank you.
Great. Oh.
While we're waiting, I just want to let the public know that the timeline, the updated timeline that Director Batchelder read and went through, it is online and available on Nashville.gov.
While they're compiling, just a question. A few of the items that I listed on my form, our organization has worked in partnership with some of those organizations in community events in the neighborhood. So we know one another well, don't necessarily have cross purposes or share funds or anything like that. So I believe that I can be partial in those. And then there are a couple that I share staff with those organizations. So those are the ones that I feel like I need to recuse myself from. But
Yeah, Commissioner Wade, that's a great example of just identifying the conflict, explaining why you know you can be fair and impartial, and explaining why you believe you're good to vote on those.
okay.
Thank you for that.
No problem, because I just want to have it really, really clear
Right.
in my head, because I only want to do this once.
Right, right. Yeah, the nature of the arts ecosystem in Nashville, which I've learned over the past year and a half, is collaborative. But just because you collaborate does not mean that you have shared financial interest, conflicts of interest, things of that nature. So.
Commissioner Jester, did you have any?
I do not.
Okay. I think I am done. Let me just make sure. I have Commissioner Knight, Commissioner Khalil, Commissioner Lefkowitz, and Commissioner Wade. Could I have mine back to sign it? We have conflicts that have been disclosed for every vote that we will take. So in large, mid-size, medium, small, and micro, and on the Thrive list. So we have a process for that. And I think that brings us to the time. Anything else about conflicts? I assume, yeah. Thanks for bearing with us as we figured out how to do a better process than was done the last time. So, next on the agenda is item C, under grants, and so that is recommendations for funding in the two categories, of course, of operating and Thrive. So what I have on, yep, this is the right side. The slide here, as I said, the panels just happened 48 hours ago and 72 hours ago. And so what we will have for Monday, we do not have prepared for today. I'm going to do a quick overview of reminding folks what these funding formulas are, because that is what results in the grant amounts that I'll explain in a minute, and just some descriptive information about each category as well. So, how many first-time applicants were there, what districts are represented, that kind of information. So a descriptive information in addition to what you're being asked to approve. So we don't have that for today, but we will have it for you on Monday and for the full commission. So what I am bringing here is we'll take 5 different votes in these 5 categories, large through micro. And so the operating grants, the funding formula is that organizations that scored between 70 and 100% are eligible for funding. So it's a simple yes or no, you're eligible or you're not. And so what you have here, in this document in front of you, lists the size category, the organization name, the score out of 100, and the award amount. And so if you go to the next slide, and Tessa, procedure-wise, feel free to, if I'm missing anything. These are the organizations that are in the large category, and you see all of their scores exceed that minimum required 70%. And so we have conflicts for the Tennessee Performing Arts Center and Frist Art Museum. And so what I am going to do is remove these from this vote. And the way this will go is I will just read every organization out loud and then ask if you have, or I guess a commissioner will then make a motion if there's any questions or discussion, and then we'll do individual votes on the 2 that I've pulled out. And so that's the process?
Correct.
Okay. So the large organizations that have received a score of 70 or above, as you see noted in the document, include Country Music Hall of Fame, Nashville Ballet, National Museum of African American Music, Nashville Symphony Association, Cheekwood Estate and Gardens, and Nashville Opera. Those are the 6 that we have no conflicts of interest for. And
I'll take a motion if anyone has one.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor of approving these operating support recommendations?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that the right wording? Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, so moved.
We don't need to do a roll call vote for the, should we do a roll call votes?
There was no
Okay,
one identified as abstaining or conflict of interest, so.
Okay, if you go to the next slide, it just says now we're going to do individual votes if needed for large organizations, and it is needed. So I'm going to ask for, or the Tennessee Performing Arts Center also has a qualifying score that I am recommending for funding as well. And so I'll take motions from commissioners.
Let's identify their recusals based on conflicts.
I recuse myself of voting on Tennessee Performing Arts Center because of conflicts.
I also recuse myself from voting on this one relative to conflicts.
Move to approve funding.
Second. Were you moving or asking for a motion? Yeah, you can move. I'll second.
I move. You second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining?
I will call for First Art Museum recommendation for funding based on their passing score as well. And if you have conflicts, please declare those.
I have a conflict.
I also am recusing myself because of conflict of interest.
I move that we approve funding for First Art Museum.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
So that passes 3-0. All right, we can go to the next slide. So these are our mid-sized organizations. There are 20 of them that have received a qualifying score of 70 or above. We have a number of conflicts in this category as well. And so right now I will read the ones where we do not have conflicts as a recommendation for funding. Those mid-sized organizations are Tennessee Arts Academy Foundation, Oz Arts, Nashville Jazz Workshops, Humanities Tennessee, The Forge, Operating Song, Music City Youth in the Arts, Inc., Nashville Film Festival, Tennessee Association of Craft Artists, Turnip Green Creative Reuse, Creative Vets, W.O. Smith Nashville Community Music School, Southern, I think I missed this one. I think that's
me, yeah.
Musicians on Call. Those are the ones that I am recommending for group approval here.
I move we approve the named mid-size institutions for these operating grants.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm
Abstain?
sorry. I have a recusal on this one. Southern Word
Did I miss
is
one?
on my list.
Okay. Yes, I did not mean to name Southern Word if I did name it. Should I?
You stopped in the middle before you fully named it.
My bad. Should I reread those, or can an amended motion to remove Southern Word from the group?
I did not take this motion to include Southern Word.
Okay,
So
good.
just for clarification,
Nor
this
did I.
group approval does not include Southern Word.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I'll do the, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Great. Organizations are recommended for funding, and then we'll do the individuals.
Okay, so I think that was 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Okay. I recommend, based on their passing score, Nashville Repertory Theater, Inc. as a mid-sized organization. If you have a conflict, please disclose it.
I recuse myself from voting on that organization, as I have worked with them in the past year.
I'll take a motion on Nashville Repertory Theater.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor of funding for Nashville Repertory Theater?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes.
I am bringing a recommendation of Moves and Grooves as a mid-size organization with their passing score, and if you have a conflict, please disclose it.
I have a conflict. We've shared a staff person within the last few years. I don't know the exact number.
Great.
I move that we approve Moves and Grooves as mid-side organization receiving this operating grant.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for Moves and Grooves.
I'm making a recommendation that the mid-size organization, the contributor, be recommended for funding. If you have a conflict, please disclose it.
I recuse myself. I have a conflict from the contributor.
I move to approve funding for the contributor through this operating grant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes to fund the contributor.
I have a recommendation to fund the mid-size organization Southern Word. If you have a conflict, please disclose it.
I have a conflict. Shared staff in the past.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Great. Southern Word, approved for funding.
Right. I make a recommendation to fund the mid-size organization Nashville Shakespeare Festival, and if you have a conflict, please disclose it.
I believe I could be impartial about this one, but just to be safe, they are currently performing at Belmont University where I work, so I will recuse myself.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor of funding Nashville Shakespeare Festival?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes.
We have a recommendation to fund mid-size organization Nashville Children's Theater, and if you have a conflict,
I will recuse myself on this one as well because I'm working on a fundraiser for them coming up later this year.
I will also recuse myself due to shared staffing.
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor of approving funding for Nashville Children's Theater?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding for Nashville Children's Theater.
our final mid-size organization that I am bringing as a recommendation is Belcourt Theater, and if you have a conflict, please disclose it.
I have a conflict.
Go ahead. Can you repeat yours?
I have a conflict.
Great. I have a conflict as well, and so we will be recusing ourselves.
I move for funding, to approve funding for Belcourt Theater.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? I had a brain freeze. Motion passes to approve funding for Belcourt Theater. And now we move to a different category. Thank you.
All right, 3 categories to go. We've got the medium organizations next, and those are up on the slides. So we have 23 organizations in the medium category, and we have 2 that I will pull out for an individual vote. But those that I will bring as a group vote right now all have a score of 70 or above, and therefore qualify for funding in the medium category. Those organizations include Dancing Through the Curriculum, Dance East Collective, Artville, New American Indian Association of Tennessee, New Dialect, Creative Girls Rock, Buchanan Arts, Music for Seniors, Daybreak Arts, Art and Soul Nashville, Inc., Nashville in Harmony, Youth Empowerment Through Arts and Humanities, or YA, Arts and Business Council of Greater Nashville, Circle Players, Inc., The Theater Bug, Healing Arts Project, Inc., or HAPPY, Rejoice School of Ballet, Love Learning Music, Move Inclusive Dance, Girls Right Nashville, and the Global Education Center. If I missed any of your conflicts, like I did in the first one, please let me know before any motions are made.
Move to approve funding for these medium-sized organizations as named.
Second.
All in favor of approving funding for these organizations?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding for those named medium-sized organizations.
All right, so I'm also bringing a recommendation to fund the Porch Writers Collective as a medium organization with a qualifying score. If you have a conflict, please share it.
I have a conflict, so I will recuse myself.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor of approving funding for the Porch Writers Collective?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries for funding for Porch.
I have a recommendation to fund the medium-sized organization Actors Bridge Ensemble based on their qualifying score, and if you have a conflict for that, please share it.
I recuse myself from voting on this because of a conflict.
I move that we approve funding for Actors Bridge Ensemble.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Funding for Actors Bridge Ensemble.
All right.
We move to small.
Yep. That moves us to the small category. We have 23 small organizations who have received a qualifying score of at least 70% or higher. We have 2 organizations in this group that I will pull out for an individual vote, but those 21 group ones include the following: Street Theater Company, The Arts at Center Street, Kindling Arts, Tennessee Youth Symphony, Nashville Philharmonic Orchestra, Nashville African American Wind Symphony, Inc., Helping Music Foundation, Vox Grata, Inc., Defy Film Festival, Inc., Chatterbird, Portara Ensemble, Abrasive Media, Inc., Intersection, Choral Arts Link, Inc., Chinese Arts Alliance of Nashville, Excellence in Motion, Inc., Make Music Neighbors, Inc., Kenny Playhouse Theater, Fashion is for Everybody, the Nashville Pipes and Drums. I misspelled Nashville there. That will be fixed. And Numinous Flux Dance Company.
Move to approve.
Move to approve funding for the named small arts organizations.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion passes for funding for those named small arts organizations.
All right, so I also have a recommendation for the small organization Unscripted based on their passing score. If you have a conflict, please disclose that.
I recuse myself because of conflict of interest.
I move to approve funding for Unscripted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries for funding of Unscripted.
All right, and I have a recommendation for the small organization Elias Chamber Ensemble based on their passing score. If you have a conflict, please share that.
I recuse myself from this as well because of a conflict.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion for Alias passes.
All We are on to our last category for operating organizations. The micro category has 20 organizations that have received a qualifying score of at least 70 or higher. There is one organization that I will pull out for an individual vote, but those other 19 include the following: International Black Film Festival, Coop, Fall, The Quiet Voice, Verge Theater Company, Arts Bellevue, Early Music City, Number Inc., Make Music Nashville, Little Art House Foundation, Music City Baroque, Kurdish Culture and Music Association, Music City Review, Vocal Arts Nashville, Shine Photography, Satellite Dance Inc., Women in Theater Nashville, Sonas Choir, and Carnegie Writers.
Move to approve. Oh,
Did
I
I
think-
I might have,
Missed IBFF
okay,
on mine.
first one, okay. I think I need to redo.
do I need to rescind my motion, just to be clear? Motion rescinded.
Can I take an amended motion, perhaps? I'll just redo it. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, yeah, please rescind that. You did. All right, I am bringing you.
Why don't we just take a motion of the listed entities sans International Black Film Festival?
I move that we take a vote, I move that we approve funding for all these entities listed except for International Black Film Festival to be considered next.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion for funding for these micro-organizations named except for International Black Film Festival passes.
Thank you for the correction. So I now bring a recommendation for the micro-organization International Black Film Festival based on their passing score. And if you have a conflict, please disclose that.
I have a conflict.
I move to approve funding for the International Black Film Festival.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Great. Funding for International Black Film Festival passes.
And my final recommendation is the micro-organization Friends of the Edmondson Homesite Park and Gardens for their passing score. If you have a conflict, please disclose that.
I have a conflict.
I move that we approve funding for Friends of Edmondson Homesite Park and Gardens.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Funding for Friends of the Edmondson Homesite Park and Gardens passes. And with that,
Ashley, before we pass through all the operating grants, you brought up the misspelling of Nashville Pipes and Drums. Same is true with Nashville Repertory Theater. It does not have an A in it.
Yes. I will fix those for the record for Monday. Thank you for that.
thank you all. That was well done.
So at the bottom of the list here that shows the total amount of awards that you just made for recommendation, it's $1,957,000. Let me redo. $1,957,920. That is the 60% of the total grant budget allocated for operating awards, perfectly on budget to the penny. And so that is the 94 organizations that we will bring to full commission on Monday.
Thank you for that. We move to Thrive Awards actions now, and I'm assuming we'll do the same kind of thing.
May I ask a question about some information on this before we begin?
Yes.
So, some of these requests come already with fiscal agents, and some on here are listed as no. What does that mean?
Yeah, so what you have here, or I'll take a step back and describe, what you've got here. So the funding formula for Thrive Grants was to rank order the applicants, highest scoring to lowest scoring, and apply 75% of their requested amount, apply that funding, and if it ends before everyone receives funding, that's where the funding ends. If there is a surplus and there is that the funding is redistributed to applicants. So what you see here is that rank order process from 1 through 76. You see their average panel score. The highest Thrive score would be 70. I'm sorry, 7. 7 points. You see the award amount, you see the project title, and then fiscal agent, yes or no. And so if it says no, it means that they were applying as an organization. And so the first one on here, the Tennessee Art League, they are an 501c3 nonprofit themselves, so they did not need a fiscal sponsor.
Thank you.
And then you see the applicant organization name, if it is an organization, the first name, the last name of the submitter of the application, and then the fiscal agent name.
And just to clarify, I notice, for example, COOP on here and in the operating grants, that is permissible?
Yes, so being a fiscal sponsor does not disqualify you from being able to apply for your own operating grant.
So it says applicant organization name, but that's not necessarily the organization. I mean, that's the fiscal agent in this instance on number 9.
It would be, yes.
Okay.
I can verify that one.
I have no issue with them. I just want to make sure we're doing things properly.
Yes. Yeah, I can verify that for Monday as well. And so this might be a question for Tessa. Is reading the project title or the applicant name and the whole we have conflicts throughout this one, so we'll be doing individual votes as we did previously. The organization name or the fiscal agent. I'll read both of those.
Let's, on this one, let's go the ones that have conflicts first, and vote those individually first. And then when we have the group that has no conflicts, so the group that has conflicts, let's read project title, organization, and fiscal agent. And then we'll allow our commissioners who have conflicts to identify where their conflict is. Once we get through the group that has conflicts, then let's just go through and read the project title for the large group. Does that sound good with this body?
Okay. Works for me.
It's our first time with this process, so. Okay, so there are several conflicts, maybe around 15 or so, just glancing at my notes. So, of course, once I get through here, if I've missed any, please let me know. But the first one that I will call for an individual vote, I am recommending number 4. The project title is From Mali to Music City. The applicant is Winship Boyd, and the fiscal agent is the Arts and Business Administration.
I have a conflict.
I recommend funding for From Mali to Music City.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding for From Mali to Music City.
All right, the second one is number 5 on the list. I should say as well, if I'm mispronouncing people's names, I apologize. So number 5, the project title is Keep Heritage Alive, Our Story. The applicant is Keith Benyon, and the fiscal agent is Belcourt Theater. If you have a conflict, please disclose that.
I recuse myself because of a conflict.
I have a conflict.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of Keep Heritage Alive, Our Story.
The next one is number 10 on the list. The project of that title is TPS Reading Festival of New Plays. The applicant is Molly Breen, and the fiscal agent is the Tennessee Performing Arts Center. If you have a conflict, please disclose that.
I have a conflict, and just a question here. I have 2 other conflicts because of TPAC as a fiscal agent. Could we consider all 3 of those together?
Let's take them one by one because other commissioners may have conflicts related to the applicant.
Fair enough. Well, I have a conflict with this one because of TPAC as the fiscal agent.
Same.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of TPS Reading Festival of New Plays.
All right, the next one is number 14. That project title is, quote, 6888, Stage Play, Community Outreach, Military, Veterans, and Senior Citizens. The applicant is Mary McCalloon, and the fiscal agent is Tennessee Performing Arts Center.
I recuse myself because of the fiscal agent of TPAC.
Same.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of 6888 Stage Play, Community Outreach, Military, Veterans, and Senior Citizens.
Who was the second? Sorry. Who was the second?
I
one?
was.
Okay.
Number 15, I have a recommendation for funding for the project titled Community Latin Music Pop-Ups. The applicant is Yamil Jimenez, and the fiscal sponsor is Tennessee Performing Arts Center.
I recuse myself because of TPAC's fiscal sponsor.
Same.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of community Latin music pop-ups.
Number 16 is our next individual vote for the project titled Music Citizens by WNXP. This is an organization applying as the applicant, Nashville Public Radio, with the individual applicant being Jesse Strauss.
I recuse myself.
I move that we fund Music Citizens by WNXP.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of Music Citizens by WNXP.
All right. Next on the same page is number 22. That project title is Nashville Resistance Revival Chorus. The applicant is Marie Campbell, and the fiscal sponsor is Street Theater Company.
I recuse myself.
I move that we approve funding for Nashville Resistance Revival Chorus.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of Nashville Resistance Revival Chorus.
That is the last for this page. If I missed any on this page, please let me know.
I apologize.
Did I miss
I didn't
one?
put one down. I missed the fiscal partner on this. Black Mental Health Village, number 26.
26.
Is that the next page or this page?
This page.
I'm flipping. I'm sorry.
Right on time.
Thank you.
All right, so let's look at number 26. The title of that project is Black Mythology Project. The applicant is Stephen Joel Watts, and the fiscal agent is Black Mental Health Village.
I recuse myself.
I move that we approve funding for Black Mythology Project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of Black Mythology Project.
All right, we
I
can
have
go.
a question before we go further. Wasn't somebody recusing themselves from the Friends of Edmondson home site as a
Was that on this
fiscal
page?
sponsored? It's on page 1.
Yes.
Yes, that was me. I was going to wait till the end.
Oh, my apologies.
Did I miss
No,
that
that's
one?
I
okay.
didn't know who it was.
It was me. Edmondson home site, Mark Schleicher.
Okay, I missed that one.
I did too.
Okay, let's go to number 6 on page 1. I have a recommendation for documentary screening series and community conversations with Mark Schleicher and Friend of Edmondson Homesite Park and Gardens.
I recuse.
I move we approve funding for documentary screening series and community conversations.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of documentary screening series and community conversations.
Thanks, Commissioner Khalil.
All right. Next is 32. So this project is titled Choreo Poems on Health and Justice. The applicant is Cynthia Harris, and the fiscal agent is Actors Bridge Ensemble Theater of Nashville, Inc.
I recuse myself.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Funding of choreo poems on health and justice.
Right, next is number 34. The project is titled Our Place Nashville Partners with Glassville, Tennessee. The applicant is Martha Morales Perucher, and the fiscal sponsor is Actors Bridge Ensemble.
I recuse myself because of conflict.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of Our Place Nashville Partners with Glassville, Tennessee.
Right. The next one is number 36. The project is titled Nashville Street Poetry Project. The applicant is Joe Nolan, and the fiscal agent is the contributor.
I recuse myself.
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries for funding of Nashville Street Poetry Project.
If I missed any on this page, please let me know. Otherwise, we are moving to number 51. That project is titled The Honey Drip Music City Inspirations. The applicant is Alicia Morozic, and the fiscal agent is North Nashville Arts Coalition.
Question, honey dip or honey drip? Mine says dip. I don't know if it's drip or dip. And I don't know that it matters, but if we're being
fact check.
exact.
Let me, I can make sure because I cannot tell you if that is my typo or.
Could be an autocorrect.
Could be. Whatever the name is, I recuse myself.
It is the Honey Dip Music City Inspirations. Okay, so we have one recusal on that. Remit motion.
I move that we approve funding for the Honey Dip Music City Inspirations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Funding approved for the Honey Dip Music City Inspirations.
All right, next is a recommendation for number 54 on the list. That project is titled Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and the applicant or the organization is API Middle Tennessee as the applicant, and Joseph Gutierrez as the individual.
I recuse myself.
I move we approve funding for Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries for funding of Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And can I add one to that last page, number 57?
Okay. We are looking at number 57, which that project is titled The Fire Cycle. The applicant is Clay Steakley, and the fiscal sponsor is Dance East.
I recuse myself from this vote.
I move we approve funding for the fire cycle.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Funding passes for the fire cycle.
All right, we are on to the next page, and number 61. That project title is How Do We Heal? The applicant is Christina Barclay, and the fiscal agent is International Black Film Festival.
I recuse myself.
I move we approve funding for How Do We Heal?
Second.
All in favor? Yes. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of How Do We Heal?
Next is number 64. The title is The Free Lunch Program. The applicant is Sean Smith, and the fiscal agent is Southern Word.
I recuse myself.
I move we approve funding for the free lunch program.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of the free lunch program.
Next is number 68. That project is titled Dance Film. The applicant is Jamie Flores, and the Belcourt Theater is the fiscal agent.
I recuse myself from this vote.
I have a conflict.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of dance film.
Next, I have number 72. That project title is FMK. The applicant is Emma Supika, and the fiscal agent is Unscripted.
I recuse myself.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes for funding of FMK.
If I missed anything on this page, please let me know. Otherwise, our last individual vote is number 75. That project is called Veni Vidi Vici App Celebration Project. The applicant is Shakira Arika Nash Bailey, and the fiscal sponsor is the International Black Film Festival.
I recuse.
I move we approve funding for Veni Vidi Vici App Celebration Project.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Abstain. Motion passes for funding of Veni Vidi Vici App Celebration Project. Sorry.
So that brings us back to, or just final call. Did we miss anything that needs an individual vote?
Now I'm really glad we pulled this out first.
Okay. So one thing that I want to note here, you see noted at the last page, awardee number 74 here, I realized after the processing of this did not meet the tech review qualifications. It was an error that slipped through. And so I've crossed that out on the list here. And you see the note says that I will bring an amended version of this to the full commission for Monday. And I will also redistribute the award dollars that are associated with that project to applicants who are not yet at their original ask amount, as the guidelines instruct us to. So I think now what I will do is read through the project titles that we did not already approve, and then we'll take another vote. So I'm not going to read the numbers with them. I'm just going to focus on the project title. So these organizations.
Director Batchelder.
Yes.
I apologize. I'm going to request an edit in what you're reading, since we're funding the applicants here. Please read the applicant, and if there is an associated fiscal agent, please read that as well. That will be a more accurate description of what the commission is funding.
Okay. So the title, applicant name, and fiscal agent.
You can just read the applicant, and if there's an associated fiscal agent, that as well.
Okay. Okay. So the following organizations are eligible for funding under the funding formula and guidelines, and so I bring these as a recommendation for you all to consider. Those applicants are as follows. Camila Sanders with a fiscal agent, The Forge. Jarrell Pearson with a fiscal agent, Helping Music Foundation. Leandra Crystal with a fiscal agent, North Nashville Arts Coalition. Dana Jo Cooley with the fiscal agent, The Forge. The organization, Tennessee Arts League, Inc. Beth Rietmeyer with the organization, Coop.
You just missed saying Stephanie Helmy's name, unless I
Yes.
missed it.
So the organization applicant, Tennessee Art League, Inc., with the associated individual, Stephanie Hemley. The organization Coop with the individual, Beth Rietmeyer. The organization Nashville Bel Canto Foundation with the individual Stefano Baldessarini. The individual Karima Taylor with the fiscal agent Black Girl Lessons, Inc. The organization El Mahaba Center with the individual Lydia Youssef. The individual Ruben Torres Rodriguez with the fiscal agent The Forge, Nashville. The individual Horacio Gundelian with the fiscal agent The Forge, Nashville. Individual Nicole Robinson with a fiscal agent Global Education Center. Delaney Dobbs with Dance East as the fiscal agent. Timbre Serpique with the fiscal sponsor Chatterbird. Rebecca Hoback as an individual with the fiscal agent Dance East Collective. Organization, North Nashville Arts Coalition with the associated individual Drew Lamb. Elena Anderson with the fiscal agent Street Theater Company. Danielle Myers with the fiscal agent North Nashville Arts Coalition.
I believe you missed the very top one, number 13.
Oh, thank you so much. Individual Daniel Wright with the Global Education Center as the fiscal sponsor.
With that misspelling there, just to note.
Yes. Individual Tracy Beard with the North Nashville Arts Coalition as the fiscal sponsor. Organization Samaritan Recovery Community with the associated individual Lydia Lynn, sorry. Organization World Afrocultural Community Project with the individual Fatia Suso. Individual Marloes Evan with Nashville Bel Canto as the fiscal agent. Individual Cayman Brown with fiscal agent The Forge, Nashville. The organization Music Neighbors, Inc. with the associated individual Jason Garriott. The organization Old School Farm Pottery with the associated individual Brad Henderson. The individual Irihi Naimor with the fiscal agent North Nashville Arts Coalition. Individual Ashley Mintz with the fiscal agent Nashville Bel Canto Foundation. The organization Nashville Youth Jazz Ensemble with the associated individual Richard Ripani. Organization Carnegie Writers with the individual Kemi El-Fuidi. Individual Hayden Hubner with the fiscal agent New Dialect. individual Mary Eliza Presto with the fiscal agent API Middle Tennessee. The individual Joseph Clemens with the fiscal agent The Forge. Individual Leslie Townsend with fiscal agent The Forge. Individual Will Merrill with Street Theater Company as the fiscal agent. Individual Kania Boren with Free Fire as the fiscal agent. Individual Navedan Singh with the fiscal agent The Quiet Voice. Individual Riza Filsufi with the fiscal agent Global Education Center. Individual Cameron Mitchell with the fiscal agent Free Fire. The individual Tony Williams with the fiscal agent The Forge Nashville. The individual Antone Weir with the fiscal sponsor The Forge. Individual Sharon, organization WFSK Radio Fisk University with the associated individual Sharon K. The individual Thalia Ewing with a fiscal sponsor Excellence in Motion. Individual Nabu Ramu with the fiscal agent Buchanan Arts. The individual Alexander Williams with a fiscal agent Women of Color Collaborative. The organization Creative Artists of Tennessee with the associated individual Shayla Holt. Individual Melkita Andrews Levitt with the fiscal agent Mentor to Motivate. The individual Dr. Ramona Whitworth with a fiscal agent Excellence in Motion. The organization Acme Radio Company with the associated individual Sarah Cahill. The individual J.V. Montgomery with a fiscal agent being Chatterbird. The individual Candace Fleming with a fiscal agent Curry Music Foundation. The individual Justin Harvey, whose fiscal agent is Abrasive Media Inc. Individual Joshua Lewis with fiscal agent Sickle Cell Foundation of Tennessee. Individual Sarah Arasi with fiscal agent Little Art House Foundation. And finally, individual Frederick Withersby with a fiscal agent Curry Music Foundation. I know that I inconsistently use the term fiscal agent or fiscal sponsor. They mean the same thing when I use them interchangeably, but those are the recommendations for the Thrive funding projects.
I move we approve funding for this entire list as presented.
Second.
All in favor of funding the named projects and artists?
Aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
Sorry.
Excuse me, we need a second.
Sorry.
I seconded. Yeah, no worries.
All in favor of funding this list as named?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries for funding of these artists and projects.
Great. And so thank you so much. Again, like I said, for operating on Monday, we plan to have just more like summary and descriptive information. You know, I read a lot of fiscal sponsors that were repeats, like being able to show how many fiscal sponsors we have and, you know, information that's easy for us to compile based on what was in the applications. Although I now know how long that process takes. And so we will balance providing information that I think you all want to know with the time constraints of the meeting. So thanks for moving through that process. Is there anything else about that we need to authorize? I think that is.
I do just want to say for the full commission, hopefully the commissioners will get their conflicts of interest form back. Staff will have those compiled. I think is appropriate. I'm technically the parliamentarian for this body, and so I can verbally identify the conflicts previously identified by the commissioners, and hopefully it'll move the process forward a little bit faster.
And we'll send out today an email to the commissioners with those slides that we reviewed today and some descriptive information in the email, like the conversation that we had today, so that people who are able to see it before Monday will have that information as well.
We could send the link, and I'll do a transcript as well. I'll do it right after. Could we move quickly to the FY26 grants, just kind of where we are there, and then wanted to talk about next meetings.
Yeah, I'll just share a few quick updates that I wanted to share. Just for, what happens next, just informational awareness for new folks. The contracting process, we're planning to contract with a paralegal to help us with that process just because of the staff capacity. These contracts, it's a lot of labor to go through the process, and that does take about 4 to 6 weeks is what we've been told and know from past years. And so that's sort of the timeline of when grantees can expect to actually be seeing funding, and that is the support that we are adding for our capacity to make sure that we can work through it as quickly and efficiently as possible. For FY25, I also want to be able to do a bit of data collection and feedback about the process. I anticipate that we will continue to use fiscal sponsors for this next cycle as well. And so we know it was an imperfect process. We know that there's opportunities to make the process better. And I'm just naming that as one thing to collect feedback on, right? We're going to collect feedback on the operating funding formula as well. So go ahead. And that includes, so I just want to, the Thrive applicants that, didn't come back with an updated application, to try to do what we can to sort of understand why, right? Was it because the work changed? Was it because the fiscal sponsorship just didn't work for them? Was it because they don't live here anymore, right? Was it that they didn't get the information that they needed? And so wanting to do what we can to kind of better understand the results and the recommendations that we're looking at here. The other thing that I wanted to share a little bit about, and not to go into a lot of detail, but I know that there has been a lot of questions about how did we get to the fiscal agent framework and the recommendation and what else was considered. And so I wanted to share a little bit about those conversations in the working group, which I was a member of from my previous position, and so had been part of those conversations before I formally took this role. And so I think the other sort of option that we saw at the time was to use one fiscal sponsor, right? That would obviously standardize the process for applicants. And there's a couple different ways to do that. And I'm sharing this for informational purposes, right? It could be completely, I guess I'll use the word outsourcing Thrive to an identified partner where they would receive a grant from Metro Arts of $1 million or whatever the allocation is to run the program, right? As a working group member, I was only speaking for myself. I was not supportive of the idea of giving all of that decision-making authority to an outside group when there hadn't been, what I was perceiving at the time, a lot of engagement with commissioners around that or the broader community. And so that idea got tabled and did not move forward in the working group. The other potential way to do with one fiscal sponsor, which again, I think the benefit is a standardized process, and it puts the work more on Metro Arts than the individual to come up with that, could be potentially to procure a vendor to do the service for us. And so if we were to do a solicitation to identify an organization with a specific scope of work that we identify, it has a price tag associated with it, and to go through the procurement process of identifying an organization to do that with clear steps of what to do in that solicitation, that could be one way to do it. And I'm just talking very generally, right? That process takes time to go through a procurement process, to develop that solicitation, to do the requests for qualifications and requests for quotes, et cetera. And so we did not go that route at that time. And I'm just naming this as, potential for the future, although, again, with the timeline that we are on, I think it would be difficult to do for this year, but I don't think it's, off the table for discussion longer term. And so I just wanted to share some of those other things that were talked about at some point in those conversations. So the other thing that I'll share about, or any questions, thoughts? Okay. I don't have a FY26 schedule or plan to give to you in the 2 weeks since we've met. Our work has been focused on producing this and processing this data and running the panels and such. So I will just tell you that one thing that I am doing next week is I've wanted to have a lot of conversations with grantees, across the organization list, individuals who have reached out to me, or I've been connected to a lot of people through various folks on our staff, in Metro, through council. And so I've been holding all of those meetings to get through this week. And so I think I have about 10 one-on-ones set up for next week with some of those organizations who seem, very excited to have someone from Metro Arts come talk about these funding formulas. And I think that or just talk about, how we got here and what we're looking moving forward. I think it's really important for the operating organizations as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about this on Monday with the information that we'll put together. But these grants amounts are really pretty different from what organizations have experienced in the past. One thing that I've been saying is that every size of organization, the grants are smaller than they have been. And those most significant changes are in your larger grants, right? And so it's a big change for a lot of organizations. And I think the way, if we choose to maintain this funding formula, we have relationships with a lot of these organizations who know Metro Arts, right? And just want to be able to talk with people to show this is where this comes from, make sure people understand why we've gone through this in the last 2 years, right? Just with the challenges that it's brought. And so that's something that I am focusing on as the interim ED, is just talking a lot with, folks who want to understand how we got here, how this was calculated, what's it mean going forward, and just want to have, a conversation with Metro Arts. And so I'm looking forward to doing that, and we'll be doing a lot more, public engagement events like we've said. I don't have a schedule or a list to give you right now, but it will be coming. And so if we move on to scheduling our next meeting, that's what you can expect at that time. But happy to take any sort of questions, requests, comments as well.
I'm glad that you will be having these conversations, and I think it's good timing. I know you haven't had the time, and I think also for the committee, we had talked about policy changes or thinking about things for next year that would be my thought is not huge things, but for example, looking at those categories, which you mentioned, we had that conversation about the underserved council districts, which, kind of I wanted to tag, which we pulled because it was complicated and we didn't have a good solution, but things about even like the process, the background checks, things like that, that we know we got through. But so I know you have those on your list, to talk to them about, but in particular, like as we're starting to think about policy for FY26, I would tell the committee too, if there's anything else that you want in these conversations, that would be, helpful. Great. Thank you. Can we move to scheduling? Are you? Oh, cool. Look at that. Good branding. So I mentioned, last month that we have a lot to get through, and that there may be a time when I would request that we meet more frequently, just to get through this. And so I maintain that and appreciate your service very much. So in terms of scheduling the next meeting, Ashley, I know you and the staff working very hard, getting through Monday and all that goes. So, I think really when we talk about the next meeting, we're talking about FY26 and moving fully into that area and thinking about a timeline and what needs to happen. So when do you think, from a staff perspective, you all would be in a place where, let me just start there and then we can back up.
I'm wondering if we want to just try to get onto the regular schedule that this, or maybe with the committee changes, we don't have a regular time, do we?
So no. So with the polling of everyone's schedules, and then everything just happening with grants in particular, we really haven't gained a gauge of like availability because it's changed drastically with everything that was going on. So I would say typically, granted this is a new commission as a whole, we're typically off March. March is an off month. But if we need to meet in March, we can set that up. That's fine. We would typically meet again in April, then May, typically have an off month in June. But it just depends. If we want to meet every month, we can meet every month. It's depending on the committee, the commission as a whole, and how each committee wants to work. So it's just up to you all.
I do think because of the timeline, that we definitely do need to meet in March. And so in terms of thinking about a schedule going forward, I know it's super hard to find a good time to, to think about that. But would one possible alternative to be just focus on the next meeting and spend in that next meeting as we're planning FY26, perhaps we can line up and align when we can meet. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's fine. I mean, I would feel more comfortable with us discussing it as a.
I know, because the emails is just so hard. I know.
It's emails. It's trying to figure out, does this work? Is this going to work? And trying to like input. So it's just really figuring out you all schedules, because you all are volunteers. You have jobs. You have other commitments that you've already committed to. So
correct.
It's just about what you are available to do. And there's always going to be a time where somebody isn't available.
I know. That's very true.
How about March 27th from 11 to 1?
That works for me.
Hold up.
The 2 weeks before that are different spring break weeks for different schools, and the 6th seems like it's too close, so.
I wouldn't be able to do the 27th, but that does not preclude this committee from meeting.
Is that always a bad time for you? Just that day?
No, we have special fundraising events.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I am able to do the 27th.
I say go with that.
All right.
I can
Okay.
do the
It's gonna be too
27th.
much.
You can? All right, let's do the 27th. And if that Thursday time can be good for you too, that may be indicative that that's a good time for all of us, right? Yeah. So that might be helpful. I know. So we will have our meeting scheduled for the 27th. And we will work on some things to send out before then in terms of like timeline and things that might be help us move through that more quickly so that we can get a plan together. That was great.
What about time? We're going to stick to the 11 a.m. to
11
1
to
p.m.
1. Yeah. 11 to 1.
I just want to note as well, when you get the invitations and you get the packet information, if you have said that you are not going to be at the meeting, I still send you the information so you are aware of what is being discussed, what has been discussed, and anything like that. It seems sometimes I feel like I'm bombarding your email boxes.
No.
I just want everyone to have the information and know what was happening, what was discussed, other than just having the meeting streamed and being able to go back. You have the paper information as well.
Absolutely. We want everybody to have that. That works for you? 27th? Cool.
I have a question. Somehow on my calendar, I have a Metro Arts Commission meeting on
On the
March
6th, ignore that. There, a lot of the dates that were on there, those were previously placed, and a lot of confusion happened. So I stopped messing with them, and so I'm going to go through them once we get a gauge of like what we're able to do with commission.
Okay.
But that March 6th is not a day. I'm going to delete that one today.
Because we're all going to work. It's Monday. We're going to Monday.
Monday the 3rd. No, yes. Yes,
Yes.
in this room.
Right here. Not Green Hills.
And I won't be here.
Yes, you've already said it.
Yeah.
You
Good.
accounted for it.
All right. Well, I just want to thank you all and thank this committee and thank staff. Ashley, you all have worked so hard to get this done. We had this timeline and I thought, oh, sure. But I don't know if I actually thought. So it's just all of your hard work and it was really fun to see and I'm excited that this is our role. And the previous iteration too of the grants committee, Commissioner Juster and Wade, like this is a continuation of all of that. So thank you all. And I look forward to Monday. And I'll take a motion to.
I motion we adjourn.
All in favor? Or do we? Yeah, go. Let's do it.
Aye.
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 Okay, we're done. Thank you so much.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.